Rap singer Eazy E has lost his battle with AIDS just 10 days after revealing that he had the disease.
That Sunday, how soon before he ended up in the hospital?
That Monday.
Wow.
The next day. And he never came out of the hospital out of Cedars-Sinai.
Wow.
And rap legend gone at just 30 years old. The Godfather of Gangsta Rap, Eazy E, whose swagger and unapologetic lyrics made him the face of Compton's rise from the streets to the Billboard charts, was taken from the world in the blink of an eye. His announcement of a sudden, late-stage illness hit harder than any verse he ever spat, and right from the start, nothing about his story felt like it added up. One day, Eric Wright was a healthy, tireless mogul, balancing platinum records and a sprawling family. The next, he was staring down the barrel of a life-threatening virus that, in the public mind of 1995, seemed to belong to a different demographic entirely. But here's where things get strange. Was this really the tragic consequence of a wild lifestyle? Or have we all been played by forces with far more at stake than a recording contract?
You know, you fast forward a little bit of time after that and he, passes and becomes one of the, most influential people on the West Coast to ever pass at the time, well, still to this day. What was your relationship like with Eazy at the time of his passing? Like, had you guys found a way to reconcile, or?
We had just reconciled. I met Eazy in '80.
We remember how the world first heard the news. The press conference at Cedars-Sinai, LA, March 1995. I've learned in the last week that this thing is real and it doesn't discriminate. It affects everyone. The words came via his attorney because Eazy E himself was too weak to speak. But even as his statement tried to turn a personal disaster into a teachable moment, his fans, friends, and family couldn't hide their shock. This wasn't a man on a long public decline. There was no slow fade, no warning signs, not even a dramatic cautionary collapse on stage. In fact, those closest to him were left reeling by how abrupt the whole thing seemed. He passed unusually fast. He did not lose weight. He was not a substance abuser. It's like, one day he's fine, the next day he's deteriorating, recalled Tracy Jernigan, Eazy E's former partner and mother of his daughter, Evie. In the weeks before he checked into the hospital, Eazy E was living like he always had. Larger than life, working the phones, hustling deals, welcoming another baby on the way, and planning for a future that no one thought would end anytime soon. Even Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, who had just signed with Ruthless Records and saw him regularly, described him as looking regular. Still cocky, still that little tank of a man, not a soul quietly wasting away. His assistant and longtime friend Charms Henry pointed out that he had none of the classic signs people had come to expect. No skin problems, no mental confusion, nothing to tip off even those closest to him. But then almost overnight, a simple cough became a hospital stay. By the time the diagnosis landed, it was already too late. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Just like that.
I get a call from E, and E's telling me, meet me at the house on Sunday. So Sunday, me and my homies, we all go to his house. And man, he's got a dry cough, like a cold, dry cough. And he was like, man, I got this bronchitis, just let me get it out of my chest. And
the official story says it was a consequence of his high-risk lifestyle. He'd been open, even in his final public address, about his many romantic relationships, enough to father at least 11 children with multiple women. His doctor would later claim that at least 2 of his former partners had been treated for the virus themselves. But those facts didn't satisfy everyone, not by a long shot. Eazy E's widow Tamika Woods Wright, who married him just 12 days before his passing, and his daughter Evie, would spend years publicly doubting the story, pointing to the speed and secrecy surrounding his decline. Tamika, pregnant with his second child at the time, tested negative. None of the children or their mothers showed signs of infection, not even the woman by his side. In those last desperate days,
Eliminate ourselves on camera. No, we don't carry guns. We carry switchblades.
He says with a smile. I mean, really, seriously, do you?
You carry guns?
No. No? So you guys don't? You feel like you don't have to?
It's just a life that we live, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just where we stay. I mean, you never know what can happen. There's people every day that you know.
So the rumor mill spun into overdrive, fed by an industry famous for dark secrets and even darker rivalries. Eazy E, after all, wasn't just a chart topper, he was a businessman, a label owner, a kingmaker. And at the time, the one roadblock standing between Dr. Dre and Suge Knight's plans to dominate the West Coast. According to Jerry Heller, Ruthless Records co-founder and former manager, the feud was anything but trivial. Eazy said, "You know this guy Suge Knight?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I'm gonna end him." Heller claims he talked him down from such plans, but the tensions were more than just bluster. Suge Knight was infamous for strong-arm tactics, baseball bats, threats, and worse, all in the name of freeing Dr. Dre from his contract with Ruthless. Lawsuits flew, fortunes were at stake. When Dre finally broke away, Ruthless kept raking in royalty payments. but the days of Eazy millions were over. Then came the whispers that Eazy E's passing wasn't just a sad, random twist of fate. Was there a plot to remove him from the board? Did someone, in the words of one former artist, give him tainted needles with acupuncture? Needles that tainted him, they gave it to him? Others, like BG Knockout, Eazy E's own protege, have spent years insisting he didn't deserve it. They say he passed from illness, but Eazy was cold taken out. No evidence, just gut instinct and a chain of events that no one could quite explain. Still, for the theorists, it's hard to ignore just how lucrative his demise became for those who inherited his empire.
Okay, something serious happened to my father, you know what I mean?
But if that wasn't enough to ignite a decade of speculation, Suge Knight himself decided to pour gasoline on the flames. The notorious founder of Death Row Records, already a villain in the eyes of half the industry, took to national television not long after his release from jail. Seated across from Jimmy Kimmel, who wore a bulletproof vest and a not-so-subtle dig at his guest's reputation, Suge didn't flinch. The technology is so high, so if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. They have a new thing out. Get blood from somebody with illness and they shoot you with it. That's a slow demise. The Eazy E thing, you know what I mean? As confessions go, it was half boast, half taunt, and delivered with that unmistakable Suge Knight laugh. He didn't exactly say he did it, but he didn't deny it either. And for a man with a record of doing anything to get his way, the world took note. To this day, we have no clear evidence, but the timeline alone still raises eyebrows. Eazy E checks into the hospital for a cough in February. Within days, the diagnosis, full-blown illness. Within a month, he's gone. And that's when the bed switcheroo theory enters the chat. According to this conspiracy, Eazy E's medical records may have been doctored to cover up what really happened. His daughter Evie, who would grow up in the shadow of this mystery, once revealed that she spent years trying to see her father's hospital files, only to be denied at every turn. Even his demise certificate is a battleground, listing pneumonia caused by the virus, but still inviting more questions than it answers.
You gonna continue making a lot of money off of this, do you think?
Basically, as long as you got people that want to learn about all this and they want to hear it, you know. As long as it's violence, it's gonna be rap music, gangster rap music, or whatever.
His family has never let the suspicions go. Ebby and her mother launched their own investigation, turning the search for answers into a full-on documentary. They pressed for interviews with doctors, pored over records, even hired behavioral analysts to study Suge Knight's cryptic TV performance. He was healthy. He was strong. Something just don't add up, BG Knockout told them, pointing out that Eazy E never showed the typical symptoms, never had an episode, even after traveling the country in harsh weather. To skeptics, the medical timeline is just too tight, too convenient for a virus that usually takes years to run its course. And then there's the small detail that none of his partners, not even Tomika, who was married to him in those final days, contracted anything. If the official story is true, how did the virus skip every woman, every child, except 2 women who never came forward publicly? Meanwhile, back in the world of big business, the fight for Eazy E's legacy was just heating up. The very same day as his funeral, lawsuits erupted over the control of Ruthless Records. Tomika Woods Wright and business associate Mike Klein each claimed the company. The label was worth an estimated $10 million at the time, not counting a double CD compilation ready for release. The court battles over the empire would rage for years, and with so much money and influence in play, more than a few people started wondering who stood to gain from Eazy E's sudden departure.
We buried him April 7th, and then I turned 11 April 23rd.
But for all the tabloid heat and online armchair sleuthing, nothing compares to the toll it took on the man's own family. His children, left to honor a father whose face loomed as large in their memories as his shadow did in the industry, have lived every day under the weight of unanswered questions. Ebby, only 4 years old when her father passed, would later call being Eazy E's daughter bittersweet, mostly remembered as the man who kissed her on the forehead late at night, not the icon who built an empire. For Lil Eazy E, his firstborn, the legacy is even heavier. I turned 11 2 weeks after he passed. I was there when they were making music, just crashing out in the bedroom. But my fondest memories are of him being a father. I know him outside of the rap, outside of the hustle, outside of the hardcore. Today, his children have taken up the mantle, launching their own music careers, reality shows, even recreating iconic photo shoots to keep their father's memory alive. Yet the shadow of his mysterious passing stretches across every family gathering, every Grammy tribute, every walk down the red carpet. When NWA received their Lifetime Achievement Grammy in 2024, Ice Cube, who famously left Ruthless Records after a pay dispute, took a moment to remind the world, this is actually Eazy E's vision. He's the one who allowed us to do this type of music. But even amid the applause and honors, the tension never really faded. Some of his children felt left out of the Hollywood retelling of his life. Some, like E.B., are still fighting for a chance to tell the story their way.
We got a chance to talk. We just sat and talked, and we talked for hours, just about old times, could we get it back together? He was beefing with Dre by then and Death Row, and I was like, yo, work that out, and I'm here, and then that was the last time I seen him. And so last time I seen him alive.
And if you think the conspiracy talk is all smoke and no fire, just listen to the street-level chatter and industry gossip that's never stopped swirling around this case. The so-called bed switcheroo isn't the only theory on the table. Some claim the FBI had Eazy E on their radar for his political lyrics and rising street influence. Others point to the high-stakes fight over Ruthless Records as the true motive for his rapid decline. Even Ice Cube, always the rational one, was recently pressed on Logan Paul's podcast about Suge Knight's cryptic hints. If somebody poked you with one of them goddamn needles, you'd know, Cube shrugged. But he didn't rule out the possibility entirely. I don't put anything past anybody. All the while, Suge Knight remains a living, breathing riddle, never quite admitting, never quite denying, content to let the story live on in whispers and half-truths. In a recent Jailhouse interview, he doubled down, retelling his version of Eazy-E's last days with just enough detail to spook even the most skeptical viewers. Next thing you know, Eric got a shot, then he's a claimed, a sinister glint in his eye. And as wild as the theory sounds, the fact that he can say it with a straight face is enough to keep the speculation alive for another generation. The truth, for now, remains just out of reach. For every medical expert who insists that rapid progression can sometimes happen, there's a friend or family member who swears the official timeline is fiction. For every doctor who says 2 of his former partners did contract the virus, there's a crowd ready to point out that none of his high-profile partners, including his wife, ever tested positive. And while one tabloid might dismiss the whole thing as a wild goose chase, the reality is that the wounds left behind by Eazy-E's passing and the chaos that followed are still very much open. If foul play was involved, who stood to gain? And why was the rap icon silenced at the peak of his power?
Some of the people that I'm talking to were saying that they weren't surprised or at least weren't alarmed by the cough because he smoked so much. Do you remember hearing him cough, and did you not think anything of it?
The cough was different that Sunday when we went to his house.
How so?
Because, man, I've smoked since 16, 17 years old. It wasn't cough.
Okay.
It was
So you knew the difference.
Sudden as it was, Eazy-E's passing didn't just leave a family in grief or fans in shock. It left a vacuum at the heart of a music empire. And that power vacuum was filled with lightning speed. In what's still debated as one of the most suspicious moves in rap business history, control of Ruthless Records shifted overnight to his new wife, Tomika Woods. The ink on their marriage certificate was barely dry. They tied the knot at Cedars-Sinai, LA, with Eazy-E bedridden, surrounded by his immediate family, a hospital minister, and the anxious glances of business associates who could see the storm brewing. Was this a last act of love or a carefully orchestrated grab for the throne? The timing couldn't have been tighter. 12 days from I do to inheritance, with millions of dollars and one of the most influential catalogs in hip-hop on the line. As soon as the funeral flowers wilted, the knives came out. Tomika was suddenly in the driver's seat of Ruthless Records, a label that had once pumped $10 million a month through Compton, with only a handful of employees and a phone line. She was up against seasoned execs like Mike Klein, who filed suit within days, each side claiming the right to control the golden goose. According to legal filings reported by the LA Times, Tomika's grip on the company was contested by Klein, who asserted a 50% stake. Behind the scenes, Eazy-E's children and other partners looked on, wondering what happened to their own piece of the legacy. Some called Tomika a savvy survivor who protected her late husband's interests. Others whispered that the marriage was little more than a paperwork maneuver, the final move in a high-stakes chess game to block out everyone else, especially his firstborns.
By 89, I had left, so I really knew him for five years, and it was mixed more with business than just hanging, even though we were hanging and kicking it, but all of it was wrapped around the music industry. So when we broke up, I hadn't seen him for years because
the story only gets more tangled as we follow the money and the legal skirmishes. Within 2 years, Tomika had negotiated new deals, broadened Ruthless's artist roster, and inked a major distribution partnership with Epic and Sony. She produced documentaries, oversaw posthumous releases, and even defended the family's name in court, famously suing Eazy-E's son, Eric Lil Eazy E, over the use of Ruthless and NWA trade. Their fight settled out of court, but the tension never truly died down. She didn't want anybody to be shown, EB, Eazy E's daughter said years later, frustrated that her mother and siblings had been erased from Hollywood's retelling of the family story. Every move by Tomica seemed to bring fresh speculation. Some say she became the queen of Ruthless Records overnight, but at what cost? Was her sudden rise just business, or was it something darker, calculated in advance to freeze out the rest of Eazy's family? Just when we thought this family saga couldn't get more chaotic, another bombshell dropped. Whispers began surfacing in Compton and across industry circles of a so-called secret love child scandal. An explosive claim emerged, the rumor that a 12th heir, hidden from the public eye for decades, was preparing to come forward and sue for their share of the estate. We've seen lawsuits from children of stars before, but in the case of Eazy E, this ticking time bomb threatens to blow the fragile peace wide open. If true, this twist could shatter everything fans thought they knew about the man behind the music, the myth that his legacy was finally secure. Could this phantom claimant be a legitimate blood relative? Or is this just the latest opportunist looking to stake a claim in a fortune left behind by a man too busy living fast to keep track of his own legacy? We're not the only ones holding our breath. Industry veterans and family friends have openly worried about the fallout. With Eazy E's catalog still raking in streaming numbers and posthumous sales, a successful legal challenge could divide the estate even further and leave his children in a fresh round of legal warfare. All the while, old wounds are reopened. Some of Eazy E's children have publicly complained about being cut off from his estate, their stories replaced by corporate narratives. Meanwhile, Tomica continues to control the business, appearing at Grammy ceremonies, updating his tombstone, and running what's left of Ruthless as both gatekeeper and lightning rod.
See, technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh, so that seems bad.
That's a slow
yeah.
Easy, I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Of course, none of these power struggles would carry half the weight if it weren't for the cloud still hanging over Eazy E's final days, his lightning-fast decline, the eerie lack of warning signs, the loose threads about his diagnosis, the allegations that his records were doctored, the fact that not a single one of his romantic partners, apart from two women treated by Jar Wilbert Jordan, has ever gone public with a similar diagnosis. The world still remembers Suge Knight's chilling, smirking comments about new technology and the Eazy E thing, a slow revenge cooked up in the shadows of the West Coast beef.
Laugh and joke and have drinks and, be talking about that happened and get a chance to have that time with him before he passed away.
Man, time does really heal all wounds.
It do.
And it's not always...
As the years pass, the story only grows murkier. Was Eazy E's rapid decline really a freak medical event? A tragic consequence of a life lived with reckless abandon? Or, as some have claimed, was he erased with chilling precision, his company and fortune snapped up in the aftermath by those waiting in the wings? Could the hospital wedding, the power grabs, and the lawsuits be the final act in a plot that started long before the first cough? And if the secret 12th heir really exists, is this saga about to get even uglier for the family and for hip-hop history? With so many unanswered questions, the legend of Eazy E refuses to rest in peace. Was this the tragic fate of a man who lived fast, or a carefully plotted scheme to erase him from the industry he built? The truth remains buried, but for how long? What do you believe really happened to Eazy E? Let us know in the comments below, because this story is far from over. Until next time, keep your ears to the streets, your eyes on the headlines, and remember, in the world of fame, nothing is ever as simple as it seems.